Hey Luke, so it's been a while since I came back, but I know I shared the video with Joe Rogan, and he talks about the live training in jiu-jitsu because you could grapple and still not cause permanent damage if you just tap and everybody's respectful. So the thing that most people, if you're gonna train for self-defense, you can't just rep moves. You have to actually be in a fight scenario and deal with the internal fear, anxiety, and fight or flight response of that. So, and also the chaos, nobody in the self-defense line, nobody's, doing a lot of crazy things. It's usually just random chaotic movements, especially if it's somebody untrained, or it's sneaky attack movement. So it's not something to prepare for. The best way to prepare for that internally, mentally, and emotionally, because also you got to deal with the fear that comes when somebody's actually has evil intentions to hurt you or possibly kill you. That could put you in the deer in headlights. That's the number one hump to get over if you're going to prepare somebody for a self-defense situation, is the fear of fighting for your life and the internal and an emotional shock that comes. You could get in shock when somebody comes to hurt you, and the only way you get into that shock is that you have a controlled live scenario of training most of the time. That's why jiu-jitsu is so effective, because half the class is just live rolling, where you have no idea what's coming on, but you have to deal with what's coming on, and you have to deal with your opponent, whatever he has to do. But grappling has an advantage because you can still go live, and you can even go hard, and if you're strong or tough enough, you could still come out healthy and mobile. Obviously somebody go too hard and break a joint, or choke somebody unconscious and stuff like that, but for the most part, in most control school, doesn't happen. You tap and that's it. Everybody just wants to get the submission. Nobody, at least in training, as far as my experience, nobody, unless it's bad blood, nobody really wants to break an arm or a leg. They just want to get the guy to tap. That's almost like a more of an ego boost than actually hurting somebody. Plus it's safe, and if you're good people, it's safe, and everybody, comes out unscathed, and everybody's in training. But you need that in order to deal with a live scenario. You need live training in order to train for a live scenario. That makes the most sense. Only live training could prepare you for a live scenario. Now, self-defense, if you're fighting dirty, and if you're gonna call it, then you could put on more gear, more protective equipment, but to me that tends to be cumbersome and get in the way of the movement. Can you train eye gouging? Can you train striking the throat? Can you train that? Yeah, you could train that, but I think light MMA sparring or light fight sparring, where you don't know what's going on, you're still, it's just not, but you both agree to not go 100%, and you could show what you can do more than that. Say you're light sparring, and then you show you could strike the throat, or you show that you could strike the eyes, and but you don't actually do it. That way the people on the receiving end could actually learn. It's like, oh shit, I could have got my eye poked right now, or oh shit, I could have had my throat struck right now. To me, that has been, in my personal experience, that has been the most highly beneficial training for live fighting than anything. You don't know what you're going on because it's live, but at the same time, you show it. So now you learn, and you don't get the shock experience. Dude, you saw how bad my sparring was. Dude, I would get fucking panic attacks when it comes to sparring, because we sparred full force, not knowing anything, and we would be taking blows that we probably shouldn't have, because because we just didn't know how to train. So, I mean, if we trained like the traditional Thais where we would just play and then maybe once in a while, you know, go a little bit hard with proper equipment towards the end or maybe towards closer to the fight, maybe our sparring would have been better, maybe, you know, we would have been healthier, maybe I would have been better, you know. To me, it's just, you know, hard sparring, you know, is just, you know, it's just fighting. For the most part, with just maybe a little more supervision, a little more padding, a little bit more rules. And, you know, we all have a number of how many blows we can take and how many fights we can be in before we just start losing all of them. That's my, you know, from my personal experience. So, you know, if we did the sparring lighter, psychologically, when the fight comes, you know, maybe I wouldn't have the anxiety to just, you know, to just not, you know, not perform. And then, you know, would have learned a lot more technically, technical sparring. And then, you know, you're better prepared for a real life situation. But you need the live training, you need the unpredictability, and every now and then you need to, you know, really get bundled up and get like a scrimmage. You know what I'm saying? You know, I think the hard sparring should be go when. But honestly, I think amateur fighting should be the most a amateur or a beginner does in the terms of hard live training. If you're gonna go hard, you might as well make it an amateur bout. That's my opinion. You know, unfortunately, MMA, we didn't have amateurs until later on. You know, when the sport was developing. But you know, if I had to run a school, I'll make everybody train technical live. Maybe there will be a hard sparring if somebody was advanced enough, and you know, if it was somebody from another school. You know, we decided to have a scrimmage in house. But honestly, most of the only times if I had a school, the only times my students would go hard would be in competition. Either amateur MMA bouts, amateur kickboxing bouts, or grappling matches. That's the only time they would really go hard. And I think that's enough for sufficient self-defense training, you know. But live training where, you know, you're just dealing with a person as is, attacking you as is imperative and the most important aspect of martial arts training, especially for self-defense. Without the sparring and the live hard sparring and you know, the live hard grappling, you know, I wouldn't be able to defend myself in the street. You know, you can't just like be in a nice control sequence and expect to do that in the street. You know, so. Well, I'll say from my street experience, I mean, it's not particularly intricate, you know. It's just basic swings and basic grabs, and you know, and then you know, you get those are, once you're fairly experienced, those are easy to counter, you know, from an untrained person. You know, a trained person, now you got to fight in the street, which could be even more dangerous, honestly, because now there's no rules. And the person can really do that. But obviously, I think personally, the most underutilized aspect of martial arts training is distance control and footwork. I've come to realize that one thing. It's like, if you can control the distance in any scenario, you can control the fight, you can control how much damage you take, especially in the street. In the street, distance control, distance management is first priority in everything. You know, because you never know what the other guy has. You never know what the other guy has. You know, situational awareness and distance managing is the first mental, emotional sense that everybody should have for street self-defense. So that comes from live training, though.